It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night where the wind howled like a pack of wolves and the rain pounded the pavement like 1,000 tiny drums. I had just finished a late shift at work and was walking home alone. I loved walking at night. The quietness and solitude gave me a sense of peace, but tonight was different. As I walked down the empty street, I noticed a figure in the distance. It was a person walking towards me. I tried to ignore it and walked on, but the closer it got, the more uneasy I felt. When the figure was just a few feet away, I realized it was a woman. She was dressed in a long, flowing white dress that was soaked through from the rain. Her hair was matted to her face and she was shivering. "Excuse me, do you need help?" I asked, trying to be polite. She didn't answer, just stared at me with cold, lifeless eyes. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I brushed it off as the cold. "I'm just heading home. Are you okay?" I asked again, hoping for some kind of response. Suddenly, she lunged at me, her hands reaching for my neck. I stumbled back, trying to fight her off, but she was too strong. I could feel her nails digging into my skin, drawing blood. I managed to break free and ran as fast as I could, not looking back. When I finally made it home, I collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Was I dreaming? Was it all in my head? But the blood on my neck and the scratches on my arms were all too real. The next day, I tried to forget about the incident and went about my daily routine. But as I walked through the city, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound seemed to be amplified. I couldn't escape the feeling that something was following me. That night, I decided to take a different route home, thinking it would ease my nerves. But as I turned the corner, I saw her again. The woman in the white dress, standing in the middle of the road. This time she wasn't alone. There were dozens of people, all dressed in white, standing behind her. They were all staring at me with the same cold, lifeless eyes. I tried to run, but they were too fast. They surrounded me, their hands reaching for me, pulling me down into the darkness. When I woke up, I was in a strange room. It was dark, but I could hear the sound of footsteps approaching. I tried to get up, but my hands were tied behind my back. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. It was the woman in the white dress. She was holding a knife. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to sound brave. She didn't answer, just smiled and raised the knife. I closed my eyes and waited for the worst. But the worst never came. I opened my eyes to find that I was alone in my own bed, the sun shining through the window. It was all just a nightmare. But as I got ready for work, I noticed something on my neck. 3 small scratches, just like the ones from that night. And I knew deep down that it wasn't just a dream. The woman in the white dress was real, and she was still out there waiting for me to walk at night again. It was a dark and stormy night. I had just finished my late shift at work and was making my way home on foot. The streets were deserted, and the only sounds were the howling wind and the pattering rain. I pulled my coat tighter around me and quickened my pace, eager to get home and into the warmth. That's when I saw her, a woman standing in the middle of the road, drenched to the bone. She was wearing an old-fashioned dress and had long, tangled hair that clung to her face. I couldn't make out her features, but something about her made me uneasy. I slowed down, unsure of what to do. It was unusual to see someone out in this weather, especially at this time of night. I was about to call out to her when she turned to face me. That's when I saw it. Her face was twisted in a grotesque expression, her eyes sunken and hollow. Her skin was pale and clammy, and her lips were blue. I froze, unable to move or speak. The woman started to move towards me, her movements jerky and unnatural. I could hear her bones creaking and popping as she walked. I wanted to run, to get away from her, but my legs felt heavy and leaden. She was getting closer and closer, and I could feel her cold breath on my face. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the inevitable. But then, she was gone. I opened my eyes, and there was no one there. I looked around, but the street was deserted. I was alone in the darkness. I continued on my way, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching me, that I was being followed. Every shadow seemed to conceal a hidden horror.
I was almost home now, and I could see the familiar shape of my house in the distance. But then, I saw it again. The woman, standing in front of my house. This time she was closer, and I could see her in more detail. Her eyes were empty, devoid of life. Her hair was matted and tangled, and her dress was torn and dirty. She looked like she had stepped out of another era, a time long gone. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey me. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. The woman started to move towards me again, her movements slow and deliberate. I could hear her whispering something, a soft, unintelligible chant. It was like a song, a lullaby, but it was also sinister and menacing. It made my skin crawl. I closed my eyes, hoping that when I opened them again, she would be gone. But when I opened them, she was still there, standing right in front of me. I could feel her, cold breath on my face, and I could smell the stench of decay. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but my voice was trapped in my throat. The woman started to reach out to me, her hand stretching towards my face. I could see her fingers, long and bony like claws. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end. But then, I heard a voice. It was a familiar voice, one that I recognized. It was my grandmother's. "Are you all right, dear?" she said, her voice full of concern. I opened my eyes and the woman was gone. I was standing in front of my grandmother's house, safe and sound. I tried to explain to her what had happened, but she didn't believe me.